What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on this channel, we break down the trials and cases you care most about so you can understand how the American civil and criminal justice system works. And we try to make sure you understand what your rights are in every situation, which is why we try to walk you through the entire legal process while also answering your insightful questions along the way. And while it's not legal advice, it's always exciting. So buckle up for another episode of The Lawyer You Know. What's up, everybody? It's Friday night. Another week done. A couple kind of shorter days, or what felt like shorter days to end the week, and no court on Monday. This one is starting to feel about maybe 5% as laborious as a trial of my own, because it seems like it's never ending. And I fell way behind today doing other things and had to catch up on 2x speed, but we got it all done. And there was some pretty major testimony I want to talk about today that, like a lot of the evidence that's come in this case, I feel like both sides are going to have pretty good uses for it. But I do want to talk about whether this timeline that we've been begging for the state to clearly set out for us, has it moved the needle? At the end of the state's case in chief, when they rest their case and they put on no more evidence before the defense goes, because of course they can always have some rebuttal evidence. But if they're ending their case, the jury should be at a point where they feel like they have enough to convict beyond a reasonable doubt right now. It should happen. But let's talk about whether or not we all feel like we're there just yet. Thank you so much for joining. I know you could be doing anything and you're here, and that's awesome. And since you're here, hit that like button. We did hit 10,000 likes for the first time ever on a Murdaugh video for yesterday's video. So let's see if we can do that again. Hit that like button so we can get to 10,000, and continue to subscribe if you have not yet. All right. I see a lot of you saying, some of you think it's guilty. Some of you thinking still not there yet. Well, we're going to go through today, and we are going to focus mostly on the timeline around the times of the murder, which is, I think, is 45 minutes worth of video. So we're going to get to that quickly, but I do want to recap the other testimony. First, the cross of Agent Kelly, who discussed the roadside incident. It almost feels like it was more than a day ago. Harpootlian talked a lot about going to the hospital and the major injuries sustained by Alec Murdaugh: fractured skull, hematoma, blood, all that stuff to show that Murdaugh was not in the right frame of mind when he made one of these, I guess, multiple false statements to law enforcement that he eventually reneged on and told the truth. He showed him pictures of the hospital. They entered those into evidence. I didn't see those actually come up on the screen. And he talked about how he admitted that he lied. And specifically, Harpootlian was doing a good job of differentiating the fraud, the lies, the roadside incident, and these murders. Again, Harpootlian does a great job of putting in front of the jury's face that he has been charged with 90 plus financial crimes. He has been charged with insurance fraud, attempt, and filing a false police report. And if he's convicted on all these other charges he has been charged with, he will go to prison for life. And is anybody wondering why Harpootlian would do that? Well, he wants this jury to know that if you do not convict him here, don't worry, have no fear. This bad guy is going to prison for the rest of his life. You've heard him confess to the financial crimes. He's going to prison forever. Do not convict him of this because they don't have enough evidence. That's what Harpootlian is trying to plant seeds of in their mind. And I think it's a pretty good job at this point, because I do think that's one of the major problems. And I asked you yesterday, after hearing this Cousin Eddie story, it is going to be very hard for a jury to acquit a guy they know is morally and ethically and physically and emotionally capable of doing that. So there was some funny stuff today, and that's another little snippet of the video we're going to watch at the end, just to end on a high note. So stay ready for that. Some of the best confessions I've gotten were from defense attorneys, this SLED agent said, and Harpootlian said, not this defense attorney, which I thought was kind of funny. There was a lot of objections about statements that, on redirect that he was making at the hospital. We had a bit of argument about it, and they kind of agreed what they were going to ask. And then I thought Waters, I think it was Waters that was doing this. Yes, it did an absolutely fabulous job on redirect, because I did not know this. And that's why I like watching this stuff with the jury, so we know when it comes out for the jury. But Waters said and confirmed with Agent Kelly that during this conversation that Harpootlian and Griffin were obviously controlling, the Moselle incident, the murders that we are here on trial for today, was off limits. Murdaugh was not going to make any statements about the Moselle incident, and that to me crushed Harpootlian's cross. It all came crumbling and tumbling down. And the differences between this and confessing and doing what's right all pretty much goes away, because maybe if he would have been given the opportunity to talk about Moselle, he would have confessed to this too. But he wasn't. Harpootlian was very spicy and argumentative with this witness, but this witness, I will tell you, okay, I've been very fair to the witnesses, in my opinion. I've said most of the state witnesses seem incredibly honest, some really great lay witnesses, and even a lot of the law enforcement officers, regardless of what I think about their investigation, they seem straightforward. They don't seem to stretch. They don't seem to try to take extra shots at Murdaugh on the stand. To me, if I was a juror, I'd be like, golly, this guy really is stretching here. I thought the two witnesses today for the state did way too much of that. And I feel like, and a lot of you are probably going to disagree with me, and I will talk to you about the guy named Peter, the second witness. I mean, Peter's got to stick together. He got some really great shots in against the defense, but this witness many times refused to just answer yes or no, had to give an argument with it. The judge even said, answer yes or no, and then you can explain a couple times to this witness. Dick was trying to bully and be tough and act like a tough lawyer and blah, blah, blah. I don't think you need to necessarily be like that, but sometimes you do have to tell him, I need a yes or no first so we can know what the actual answer is, and then you can explain. The witness eventually did. There were some badgering objections, but and then he asks, would you have gone forward if you knew he had all this stuff in his system and the brain injury or skull injury that he had? And the officer's basically like, yeah, when we have this opportunity, we take it. And he's right, and they do. And it's really hard for a jury to just dismiss something because, maybe he had some kind of injury or he was taking opioids. All right. The next witness, the timeline witness, okay? He basically was just there to regurgitate data and put it all in a timeline and explain it to us. It's very interesting that this timeline was able to be entered into evidence. Sometimes in Florida, at least, you can object to summary exhibits becoming evidence that goes back to the jury, but you can use them as a demonstrative aid. I thought it was interesting here that this actually went back or is going back to the jury. So forget about notes. If you've got this timeline, that's going to be great. And he gave an initial one, but he recently put in a lot of the GM data. A lot of the stuff, I'm not sure how relevant it is. He left work at 6:24. He gets home at 6:42. He's walking around a lot with Paul. Maggie gets there at some point. But what was important from the GM data of him driving to and from work and things like that is his peak speed, I believe, was 42, 44, 48 miles an hour, something like that when he's doing normal driving. I actually think they got into the 50s. 54 miles an hour. But on the drives to and from Alameda, 70, 74, 80 miles an hour. There are some interesting things they got out on cross, but that is where we begin to start to see how he's acting like someone who just committed a crime. And there's more to that. And basically, this timeline does line up with most of all of the other timelines, but we're going to listen and focus in on the specific timelines of the murder. I also want to mention, they talked a lot about deleted calls and text messages and whatever from Alex's phone that weren't on there during the extraction, but they were on there when they got it from the phone company. And as I listened to it, it sounds really bad, right? He deleted these calls. But did he actually delete the calls or were they overwritten? Which extraction are they talking about? Because he gave him the phone that same night. Are we saying he deleted them the same night? Because I don't think that's when, because I think that extraction got screwed up and they had to do the extraction later where they actually pulled stuff and they admitted that some stuff was overwritten, number one. Number two, some of the phone calls that he was making in front of law enforcement officers were deleted. So I don't think that holds as much weight as much as it does makes him sound really bad in front of a jury. There were some calls to Maggie and some calls to Paul that were deleted as well. CB Rowe, another potential person that could have done this, has an alibi. His phone was far away, so we can cross him off the list. And now let's jump into the actual discussion of the timeline. We are going to watch it on 1.5, and we are going to kind of skip ahead when points get slow. But I do want to watch this with you and get your opinions on this timeline and see how much this moves the needle for you. If you were on the not guilty side before, I'm sure if you were on the guilty side, this just confirmed everything you believed, because I did think it was really good evidence for the state. But let's watch some of it together here.
This is locked until 8:49:26.
8:49:26. Is that correct?
8:49:26.
All right. At 8:32:25, we have an entry in green in the middle line going down. Can you explain to the jury that those time periods and what, if any, significance they have?
So green is going to reflect Paul Murdaugh. Anytime you see green, it's going to be Paul, and purple is going to be Maggie. That's reflecting that his iPhone moved approximately 283 steps during that time period. So on the left-hand side, as we go down, and you're going to see other data entry points. If you see the green next to it, that means that those steps are being traveled during that time frame.
And now we have a map. Whose phone is that?
This is also going to be Paul Murdaugh's. This is going to be his iPhone location data.
All right. And where's that iPhone location data located?
And that's going to be at the kennel area of the property.
All right. And tell me the time periods that he is at the kennels at this point in time.
At this point in time, he's at the kennels at 8:38:07 p.m., 8:44:53, 8:44:55, 8:44:56.
So right until basically the phone locks 8:44 to 8:49, something like that, he's by the kennels. We also know by the videos, as we're about to hear, Murdaugh's by the kennels as well.
What happens at 8:40 while Paul's phone is at the kennels?
Paul calls Rogan Gibson. It shows answered for 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Starting at what time?
8:40:20.
If you have about a 4-minute call, what time does that end?
8:44.
At 8:44:34, what, if anything, does Paul's phone indicate?
So at 8:44:34, Paul Murdaugh initiates a FaceTime video call with Rogan Gibson. It shows answered 11 seconds long. And that's based off of Paul and Rogan's information.
And then at 8:44:55, what does it reflect on Paul's phone?
This is when this video was extracted and created through Paul's phone, which shows Alex, Maggie, and, well, you can hear Alex.
Very clearly he said, video extracted. Here, I'm going to move these. So this says, he said extracted and created. This note says extracted through Paul's phone. But he has testified extracted and created at 8:44. Shoot, there was one thing. Yes. Okay. Sorry. There's one thing that was incredibly important. So we already know 6:52 to 9:04, no activity on Alex's phone. Okay. But at 7:39, he said that sunflower tree, is that what it was? Whatever that little tree that looked like it was dying, where Murdaugh is wearing the khaki pants and the seafoam green shirt, that was taken at 7:39, he said. He confirmed that that's when it was taken. So from 7:39, he had that outfit on. And we know, I mean, I feel like I want to say at 9:06, when he gets into the car to drive to his mom's house, he's got the white t-shirt on, because Shelly didn't say he changed. Shelly said that's what he was wearing. So I don't think he could have changed in his car while driving 80 miles an hour and texting and calling and throwing the phone out the window. I don't think he could have done all that. All right. People are giving the guy a lot of credit as far as like, oh, he did this all in 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 18 minutes. He did all this. I don't think he did that. So we're going to say between 7:39 and 9:06, that's when he changed clothes. And obviously not at 7:39, because they had to go back to the house and stuff. So when did he change clothes? And why was it that bright at 7:39? Is the cop wrong? Is that testimony wrong? Should we back it up and look at it just to make sure I didn't miss it? Let's do that. Let's back it up to 3:29 real quick. We're at 3:49 here. So 3:29, I think, is when he
reflects on your summary timeline?
So from earlier testimony, you've seen this this video. This is just a thumbnail picture, and this is when it's shown it was created in Paul Murdaugh's phone. And we have a little screenshot of the creation time. It's going to show 7:39:55 is when this thumbnail was created in Paul's phone.
Ah, okay. So maybe I'm wrong. This thumbnail and picture were created. Were all of you telling me that? People are saying it's bright there at 7:39. This thumbnail and picture were created at 7:39. I think that is hogwash language. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think this video was taken at 7:39. But the way he testified to it the first time when I was just listening to it, I thought he confirmed the video was taken at 7:39. But now that I'm listening back and you look at the actual report, it says thumbnail picture created. That is Bush League, if you ask me. That is misleading, if you ask me. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let me know. I hear you saying it's still light at 7:39. I hear everybody saying that. People say I think it was taken at that time. I don't know. I don't know. I hear you saying it's light at 7:39. Okay. All right. Then why didn't they say the video was created at 7:39? Why does it say thumbnail picture? All right. We're getting off track here a little bit, but that is a little shady to me. But I could be wrong. People are saying you're wrong. Okay. All right. That's fine. I'm not saying it can't be light at 7:39. I'm not saying it can't be light at 7:39. Okay. Let's take that off the table. I hear you. I hear you saying it can't be light, or it could still be light at 7:39. But that is not what that timeline says. All right. We don't need to argue about it, but I think I don't feel great about that. I'll just say I don't feel as good about it as I did for the prosecution earlier today, now that I'm listening to it a second time and reading this. But let's jump back to where we were.
Going to the top of page 19.
Mm-hmm.
What time do we see there?
8:48:29.
And what's going on? What's Paul doing?
He's receiving a message from Megan, and we have some backlight on data at 8:48:56.
All right. And the next entry, tell me the time period for that entry.
8:48:58 to 8:49:01.
All right. And what happens there?
Paul Murdaugh's phone that's the last time that it was unlocked.
Ever?
8:49:01.
And the next activity that we'll see on Paul's phone occurred when?
We have a backlight off from 8:49 to.
Going back to 8:48 to 8:49:01, you said that was when Paul's phone was last unlocked?
That is correct.
And continue on with that data entry, what does it indicate? What's the next time ever that Paul's phone shows any activity?
10:18. That's when.
And the 8:48 to 8:49 p.m.?
I'm sorry, next activity notification is going to be the Rogan Gibson call at 9:58:35. That's the next time that any activity or notification shows up on his phone.
Looking at this entry with the green line on the right side, what are those time periods there, and what do they represent starting at 8:49:01?
Starting at 8:49:01 to 10:34:23, Paul's phone shows device locked.
So this is where we get our timeline, right? 8:49 is when I feel like is the closest, even though nobody's specifically testified to it, and the coroner that they called later just made it even more confusing. But this feels like the time of death, right? 8:49 to 9:06 is what a lot of us are saying. And the reason we're picking 9:06 is because that's when we know Alec Murdaugh wasn't there anymore. He left. But theoretically, the time of death, if you're the defense, you want it to stretch as late as you possibly can, because if the time of death could have been 9:30 or 9:40 when Murdaugh was at Mom's or driving back from Mom's, that plays better into your story. But we know for a fact that their phones were never touched again, basically, or never used by them again at 8:49. Maggie had some steps, 8:53 to 8:55. So that's why we have to leave a little leeway there. So 8:49 to 8:55, that seems like the most likely time the shootings occurred. And Murdaugh was still there. Now, was he at the kennels? We don't know. But he wasn't in his car at this point. We know that for certain.
Was it ever open again until it died at 10:34:23?
It was not.
8:49:01 is the last time before that Paul had ever unlocked his phone.
That is correct.
Just a few seconds later, does Maggie's phone reflect any activity?
It does. 8:49:26, approximately 26 seconds later, her phone unlocks for a text message notification, and it implements an orientation change.
And was that text message about Mr. Randolph that you earlier referred to?
That is correct, that group message. I believe it was in response to Lynn.
And at 8:49:31, here in red, what happens to Maggie's phone? Just seconds later.
Maggie Murdaugh's phone locks forever
Forever. Until when?
until it's recovered the next day at 1:10 p.m.
On June 8th.
on June 8th by law enforcement.
Do both Maggie's and Paul's phone lock forever around 8:49?
They do.
At 8:49:35, does Paul's phone receive a text from anyone?
It does. It receives a text from Rogan Gibson.
And what does that text say?
See if you can get a good picture of it. Mary Ann, referring to his girlfriend, wants to send it to a girl. We know that's a vet. Tell him to sit and stay, and he shouldn't move around too much. That shows unread.
Never read that.
Never read it.
According to the investigation.
And they confirm again that he usually reads this stuff quickly. And I think that type of habit evidence is really important in this case.
Is that the conversation that Paul and Rogan were actively engaged in starting at 8:40?
That is correct.
Kennel video was at what time?
8:44.
And then the defendant
Just a couple minutes later, now he just stops responding after he was responding immediately to multiple people. I think that's good evidence. And I mean, kids these days, myself included, I can still consider myself a kid, pretty quick to respond to a lot of things. Thank you, Carpe Diem.
repeatedly denied that he was ever at those kennels with the victims just minutes before their phones go silent forever.
Objection.
Basis for the objection.
Leading. Leading.
Not leading, but restate the question.
Did the defendant repeatedly deny ever being at the kennels at that
Yes.
time period?
Yes, he did. Various interviews with law enforcement.
Was that kennel video? What time was that kennel video?
8:44.
And what time did Paul and Maggie's phones go silent forever?
Objection is overruled.
8:49.
Bad objection there. Bad objection. This doesn't hurt you. It fits into your timeline, but now you've highlighted for the jury as if it's a bad fact for you. Bad objection there.
At 8:53, do we see any activity on Maggie's phone?
We do. At this time, as you can see to the right, her phone is locked, but we do see that 59 steps were traveled over the period of 8:53 to 8:55.
And that just means the phone was moving, correct?
That is correct.
Do we see some orientation changes as well?
We do. Between 8:53:08 and 8:55:32, we see various orientation changes, which would indicate someone has the phone.
So let me just tell you right now, the orientation changes. I feel like both sides have tried to use them when it's good for them and dismiss them when it's bad for them. Oh, it proves this, but doesn't necessarily prove that. It doesn't really prove that, but it can prove this. I'm not buying the orientation change. I'm not putting a lot of stock, I should say, in the orientation changes. And when we get to the steps, we're going to discuss how much weight you guys put in the steps as well.
Moving on, page 20. At the top, we have 8:55, and we have a reference to a data point. Can you explain that to the jury, whose phone that is, and just generally what that is based on information gathered in the investigation?
8:55:48.
8:55:48, yes, sir.
That's just a internal application running in the background for Megan Murdaugh's phone. It's just the iPhones will take a random snapshot of what's going on in the phone. So that's just reflecting that there was some, behind the scenes stuff happening in her phone. It's not saying that someone was actively using it.
Hold on for me just real quick.
So Ashley, I actually delete a bunch of mine because like my voicemails and stuff, because that gets full. And then if like storage goes up or iCloud storage or whatever, which sometimes you can't figure out why. And then you have these pictures and videos that you're texting back and forth and I just delete the whole chat. That happens a lot of times, and I mean, if it's for months, that could happen multiple times. So I get it, but the deleting stuff to me wasn't as damning as a lot of the other stuff we're going to hear here.
A reference to step data on Alex's phone.
That's correct.
And what are those time periods?
8:05:35 to 8:09:52. It's showing 54 steps traveled.
All right. Turning to page 20. What suddenly happens to Alex's phone around 9:02?
Pretty much wakes up.
And what data point is reflected?
From 9:02:18 p.m. to 9:06:47, it shows 283 steps traveled.
So here's what I will say. The only thing about this 902 thing, okay? So this is big. This is something they focus on. We are going to talk about it now, okay? All these steps and this stuff. But his phone was off, I can't remember, whatever, the hour, 8 to 9 o'clock till 9:02. If I'm the defense, here's what I think the argument is. The murders happened sometime after 9:02. 9:02 is when Alec was walking to his car, walking around. He was doing this and that and whatever, and got in his car and left. Because he left his phone at the main house or whatever, and he was with Paul and Maggie the whole time. They were at the kennels together. He walks away from the kennels at 8:55, right when Maggie's steps are going. He walks from the kennels to the house, takes a couple minutes. Maybe that's when he changes into his white shirt, grabs his phone, and his phone wakes up at 9:02, ends up getting to the car and leaves. That has to be the defense's story. However, the defense does not have the burden to prove that story. So now we are about to hear the state's story and what they think happened from 9:02 to 9:06 or 8:49 to 9:02. Now that we have that in mind and we're thinking from the state's point of view, let's see if we think that this is not just possible, not even just probable, but beyond a reasonable doubt that it happened the way that they're about to explain it.
And how long? How many minutes, roughly?
5 minutes, 6 minutes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 521, your testimony, and see if you recognize that.
I do.
And tell me what that is, please.
This is going to be a paste spreadsheet for Paul Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Alex Murdaugh that I created.
Your Honor, this time I would offer States 521 into evidence. No objection.
Submit it.
Yeah, the other one, please. And General, if I could have the screen. Just generally, we have at the top.
All right, so I'm just going to pause it so we can take a look at this, and then we can kind of skip through it as we go. But they're comparing the steps per minute here, which the max is 31.45. And that's the more important thing, not how many steps, but the steps per minute. 31.45 is the most, and we'll look at how fast he was walking from 9:02 to 9:06. But then we're going to kind of mix in what happened in cross because we're not going to watch the whole cross together. I like to keep it fair, as you guys know. But we're going to mix in some of the arguments they made on cross and try to really scrutinize and see if this is legit and if we believe this is real.
Quickly, what this is and what these columns represent. Explain this chart, if you would.
First column entry, that's just going to be from all the various entries from the phone data. We have a start, and then we have
From the phone down periods of
the last step reading from Paul's phone is 8:32 to 8:42.
we have one for Maggie as well.
Oh, sorry. That was Paul. That was Paul, not Alec. But again, it kind of shows just average steps per minute. Maggie's same thing. Her most is 48. And then we get to Alex, who, if you look at Alex, before
we have.
these things are annoying me. Okay. So before the murders occurred, the max is 31. After the murders, we've got a 70, a 61, and a 57 later on when he's back. Now, I think this 61 and 57 is damning for the state. This 70 is great for the state. It seems like he's really hectic, and we're going to listen to him explain this a little bit. But let's continue to think and discuss it in the chat what we think about the differences in these steps per minute.
This is going to be Alex Murdaugh's paste spreadsheet.
Let's talk about this a little bit. If you would, start with entry 21. And what time periods is that? This is Alex's phone, correct?
This is going to be Alex Murdaugh's phone.
Time period.
6:52 to 7:02.
How many steps?
Approximately 283.
And how many steps per minute based on a simple math calculation?
Estimated 29.34.
All right. 22, time period, steps, and steps per minute.
7:03 to 7:11. Approximately 165 steps. Estimated 19.26 steps per minute.
24,
24 is going to be 7:28 to
25,
7:40. Approximately 28.2 steps per minute. That's 17.28 steps per minute.
and they testified. That was the last entry on Alex's phone before we get to the 9 o'clock hour. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Animals, I agree with you, but maybe the defense, maybe the judge already determined he was going to let it in, and maybe they liked that there were some typos and incorrect things in here, maybe.
And what time was the video again?
8:44 p.m.
Let's talk about 27. What's the time period there?
Time period to be 9:02 to 9:06.
How many steps?
283 steps. 70.75 steps per minute.
Thank you, Marty.
He's a busy guy right then, wasn't he?
He's a busy guy right there, wasn't he? And the state's making a big deal of this again. Now, did anybody, be honest, tell me in the chat, did anybody actually go and like see how long it takes them to make these steps? See if they could take 70 steps in a minute and how fast they'd actually be walking to do that? Because that's something that I'm thinking about. And we'll talk about on Cross on what they do with the whole 20 seconds thing for effect, which lawyers love doing so much. And I think it may have backfired on them in this case. But let me know if you actually did go and test this. Now, the biggest thing for me is to see that this is, double or triple what he had done in the past. But very similar to how he was walking when he got back at, after 10 o'clock. So how does that play into it? And if you remember on Cross, what's his name? Balmer? I can't remember the guy's name that does. He does a really good job for the defense. He talked about how far did he travel? What's the distance? Well, we don't know the distance. Okay, so does that mean somebody could be walking for part of the minute and then stopped for part of the minute? Yes. Okay. So we don't know if, like, when we compared Maggie's walking to Alex, well, we don't know. They could have been walking at the same time because they could have been stopped for 30 seconds and then walking really fast for 30 seconds. So it's like, so what does this data actually tell us? And I think that they can break down this data as, I'm not really sure it proves what you think it proves. But as I was watching direct, I absolutely thought this is bad for Alec Murdaugh. From 902 to 906, 70 steps per minute, way more than anything he's done earlier in the day. That does not look good. That looks like he's running around with like a chicken with his head cut off.
What was the average steps per minute from 902 to 906?
70.75.
Was that far in excess of any ratings on his phone in those prior entries?
According to this table, yes.
Have the computer back again, please. We have a map here on Paul's phone. Tell me very quickly what that represents.
We do. This is going to be based off of Verizon records for Paul Murdaugh, and it's showing 903.22 and 903.30, just showing what cell towers it was pinging off of.
Again, is his phone still locked during this time?
That is correct. Paul and Maggie's phones are still locked this time.
Bottom of page 20, we got a pink box. What does that reflect?
That's from the FBI telemetry data, just showing a system startup telemetry system.
On which
It's gonna be,
vehicle?
Alex Murdaugh's 2021 Suburban.
So Caprice sent this to me, and I think it says 7:56 is when it was actually sent. So again, I think when it was taken is still up for debate. That's just me. So Keeley says, shows a bunch of running around 902, narrows the timeline more because he would have been running and cleaning up, not adding up to me. A lot of people feel different about this, but let's talk about it now for a second, okay? Now we have 902 to 906 when he's running around. And NCRN says AM couldn't have done this in that time frame and cleaned up. No way, with no blood in the SUV. So while this makes him look like he is scrambling from 902 to 906, so we think the murders occurred, let's just say somewhere around 8:56. Let's just give the benefit of the doubt to those steps where Maggie's 8:53 to 8:55. We know it was after 8:49. So let's say 8:56. We don't know what he was doing. I guess at some point he went and got his phone. Did he go get his phone before he cleaned up and did all that stuff? Or did he clean up before he got his phone? Either way, it's 6 minutes before he had his phone and started moving, or 4 minutes after. So 10 minutes that he ditched the weapons, ditched the clothes, cleaned everything off, got into the SUV, and then left. I don't care if he took 1,000 steps in those 4 minutes. It's still very hard for me to believe he pulled that off. And I think the more I think about that roadside incident, the more it makes me think, no way that same guy did these two things. However, and a lot of you were saying this in the chat as well, I'll bring some of them up as we're listening. It does make me think even more. And I don't know what to do with this. I'm going back and forth. I'm having a little internal struggle here that I'll share with you guys. But it does make me think that he was absolutely there when the murders occurred. Did he know about it? Did he have something to do? I still think, and I'm feeling this timeline makes me feel more confident that he was not the trigger man. More confident. But it makes me also feel more confident he was there. Would he have heard the shots? Would he have done something different? Did he set it up? Did he know what was happening? Did it have something to do with the drugs? And there's more in the timeline that gives us context to that we're going to talk about. But I'm having an internal struggle of what to do if he was there during the murders, but I don't think he's the trigger man. I don't think they've proven murder. And we've talked a lot about conspiracy to commit murder, but I feel like they would have had to have a call or a text message to somebody showing that he was involved. Let's keep listening to the timeline here.
Is there a CDR reference to Mary Ann Dempsey attempting to call Paul?
There is.
Mary Ann Dempsey again is who?
Rogan Gibson's girlfriend at the time.
We have 2 entries after that. Can you explain those entries to the jury? And
Murdaugh's iPhone backlight and his CDRs.
I got to be honest, this stuff like with the backlight, not as important to me either because they've given 100 different reasons why this stuff could happen.
Does not show on that Dylan Hightower first extraction or the second extraction. It also shows missed on Maggie's phone extraction.
that one's missing from Alex's phone, correct?
That is correct. In the call log, it is missing.
So here's my question now. Okay, we're going to talk about call after 9 o'clock that they're trying to say Alec deleted from his phone, right? But I thought the state's entire theory was Alec Murdaugh's trying to set up his alibi. Wouldn't this be part of his alibi? And I think it's just as plausible. I mean, I don't know, was he calling the phone and seeing if it would ring? Or did somebody else have her phone and he called and it rang and then they ditched it? Those are plausible scenarios, but I don't think the state's proven whether this should be important to me or not.
At 9:05:15, is there any activity on Alex's phone?
It shows that Alex Murdaugh calls Randolph Murdaugh, 18 seconds. Does not show on Dylan Hightower extraction or the second extraction, just on the CDRs.
We have a pinkish box. What does that represent?
Pinkish box can represent that system startup for the telemetry data for the 21 Suburban.
At 9:06:12, what happens?
Between 9:06:12 and 9:06:20, Maggie Murdaugh's phone implements orientation change from portrait to orientation sideways.
That starts at 9:06:12.
Yes.
And on cross, I thought they did a great job about, it was in portrait and then it was in portrait again, and not necessarily means this or the other expert. When you throw it, doesn't necessarily change. So we are really stretching, I think, to say that this proves much about the orientation change. But some of you think it absolutely does. And you guys are my potential jurors. So you know that. I love you guys. I love your opinion. So the fact that you think it's really important, that changes the way I look at it. Because when I look at it, I'm like,
6:20.
Orientation starts to change. What happens 2 seconds after that orientation starts to change?
At 9:06:14, so that's 2 seconds afterwards, the phone receives an incoming call from Alex.
Was that call on the call log when Dylan Hightower downloaded the defendant's phone?
It was not.
Meister, it was interesting. On direct, I was like, yeah, this guy's pretty decent, I think. I mean, he has a lot of conclusions. He's totally just repeating and regurgitating what everybody else said. But then, what just happened there? But then on cross, all he kept saying was, well, I'm not an expert. You got to ask somebody else. Somebody else will be better able to answer that question. So then he just lost most of the credibility, but he is not important. The timeline that has been entered into evidence, that is what is important.
Nine of 6:14 and 9:06:15. Are those referencing that missed call that showed up on Maggie's phone?
That is correct.
And 9:06:20, we're still seeing an orientation change.
Yep, that's when the orientation ended.
Moving down to the bottom of page 21, we have a bluish and a green box. Tell the jury what that is.
So according to the FBI telemetry data, the blue is going to indicate a shift in the transmission, and then green is going to show driving.
The Suburban's underway.
That is correct, according to the telemetry data.
At the bottom of page 21, is there another call from Alec Murdaugh's phone to Maggie's phone?
There is at 9:06:52. Alex calls Maggie. It shows 7 seconds long. And that's based off the CDR since it was deleted off the call history.
It wasn't on Alex's extraction, correct?
It was not.
2 missed calls.
2 missed calls.
Moving to page 22. At the top, what, if anything, does Alex Murdaugh's phone show in relation to the Suburban?
So it's just showing that the device connected to the car. When you get in your car, your phone will pair. It's just showing a device connection to iPhone.
And then the next entry, there's a time range there. Explain that time range to the jury and what that means.
So starting at 9:07 and going till 9:44. 9:31:44. Her backlight is off.
The backlight is off. That entire time period.
That entire time period. It was on, but now for this time period from 9:07 to 9:31, it's going to show off.
Going to this map, is that some of the pass data that you did that you testified to the jury?
This is the previous slide that we had up. It's showing at 9:07:06. The Suburban is leaving 4147 Moselle Road.
2 calls to Maggie. Does the Suburban just take a quick right and go down this road right there to the kennels, or does it just continue straight on?
It just continues straight on.
Doesn't stop by the kennels for a second, does it? Doesn't stop by the kennels.
His vehicle does not stop by the kennels.
And again, some people, and this is all, once you start to feel a certain way, I've said this, you're going to look at the evidence a certain way. I do not think it's at all abnormal that he didn't stop by the kennels, especially if, his lies are lies and he was actually just with them until 8:45 and then went back to the main house and then left. You wouldn't swing back by after you were just with them 10 minutes earlier. I wouldn't think. I think that's plausible. Now, that doesn't prove that he did anything, but I just think that's a plausible explanation.
Keeps right on going.
It's right on going to Moselle Road, makes right. Location of Maggie Murdaugh's phone when it was located, and at 9:00.
All right, so here's where her phone was
it's showing
tossed,
42 miles an
and
hour
we're going to get some data around that I think is really interesting.
on Moselle Road. In reference, we're coming up to Godley Farm Road on Moselle Road. This is at 9:08:36.
Thank you, Lisa.
And then we have, below that, we have a reference to a data point that you previously showed to the jury at 9:08:42.
Yep, it's going to be on the next page.
All right.
It's going to be at 9:08:42. It's showing approximate miles per hour 45.
So what do you guys think? What's your initial reaction when you hear when her phone was thrown, he was going 45 miles an hour? Because mine is, it's possible, yes. But I think it'd be pretty hard to toss a phone while you're driving 45 miles an hour on that dark road that they made it seem so difficult to drive on, but it's possible. But what's impossible is to be doing 5 things at once. That's what's impossible to me. So I think on cross, they made it seem very difficult that he was able to do all this stuff. And why would he do it like this? Why would he be so careful to get rid of the guns and get rid of the clothes and do all this, but just take her phone and then toss it out the window? And then also, why did he not take Paul's phone and toss it as well if he admitted to picking up Paul's phone? And why didn't they get touch DNA off Maggie's phone? I don't know why they didn't get DNA off anything. Kathy, this is a great point. Chasing the dogs to get him back into the kennels, 70 steps per minute. I think this isn't, I didn't even think of that, Kathy. And if you were sitting next to me in the jury room, I'd be like, uh-oh. Kathy has just pulled me more towards not guilty for these crimes. Because that's a great explanation. And it's not even that far-fetched since we know he was just messing with Bubba who had a chicken in his mouth. I don't know.
In reference to where the phone was found the next day.
And what's the speed on the defendant's vehicle at that point?
45 miles an hour.
And is Maggie's backlight off during this time period, this entire time period?
Her phone is locked. The backlight is off.
So wouldn't your backlight come on if you throw the phone? I mean, like if I drop my phone, the backlight comes on. Maybe if it's facing towards my face, I can't really tell. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. The cell phone people did not seem like super specific. Like Monica's saying, is the step data always accurate? What's the accuracy rate? I agree. I think they admitted there's some things that, oh, no. Even he admitted, oh, yeah, no, that's not accurate. We don't even look at that. I was told that wasn't accurate. It's like, okay. So Peggy.
At 9:08:58.
No, because it doesn't actually They don't have the actual like tracking the steps of where their phone was. Just steps and on and off, and they know where they found it, and they know she had it at some point. But I don't think they tracked that phone with Alec Murdaugh at all. In fact, none of the steps match up at all between the two phones. They were never walking together.
What do we see?
Alex Murdaugh sends a iMessage to Maggie stating, "Going to check on M, be right back." This shows unread in Maggie's phone.
Moving on, does Alex's phone reflect a series of calls being made?
It does.
Tell me about the first one.
First one's gonna be at 9:10:47. Alex calls Buster. It shows 60 seconds long. That's based off of CDR since it's not in his phone extractions.
And that's again also missing from that entire series of events around the time of the murders that was not on Alex's extraction when it was downloaded.
That is correct. It's not in the call log.
So this one, okay, a couple things. Number one, it's should be part of his alibi, right? He's calling people. He wasn't there at 9:10. If the murders happened at 9:10, he couldn't have been there because he's calling. So it's part of the alibi they say he was setting up. But this one could be important because a lot of people are wondering if Buster's involved. I'm not going to say Buster's involved. I don't want to get him mixed up in all this, but that's the only thing that could be weird about deleting this is did he not want them to know he was even talking to Buster? I am still in the camp that these deletions make no sense to me, like no strategic sense. So I don't think it was he was deleting them to try to hide something. I think it was overwriting of his phone or something, but they're certainly making it seem like he destroyed evidence.
Then ask an answer.
Chris Wilson, it shows 42 seconds long. That's based off of CDRs because it's not in any of his phone extractions or call log.
Connection time as well.
It does.
Moving on to page 24, we have a map. Tell the jury quickly what this map reflects.
It's going to be Alex Murdaugh location map from Verizon. It's going to show at 9:12:14 what tower and what sector it's pinging off of, and then at 9:18:46 what tower it's pinging off of. The red dot's going to be Moselle. Green one is going to be the Alameda property. Which tower. Far right, the little red dot, that's going to be Moselle. Blue dot is
We know he drove to Alameda.
going to be 9 Fairfax.
Moselle.
Moselle's going to be that red.
At 9:18:46, what if any activity is reflected on the defendant's phone?
At 9:18:46, Alex Murdaugh calls John Marvin Murdaugh. It shows 106 seconds. And that's from his CDR since it's not on either phone extraction.
A lot of these he testified to as well. I don't think he ever said he called Buster. I could be wrong. But we know he called Chris Wilson already. That's already come out. We know he called John Marvin. We know all these calls already. So the fact that they weren't on the extraction is, again, just trying to make it look like he covered something up.
All right, we're on page.
Plotted, it's showing starting at 6:20:34 all the way to 9:46:35. It's showing from the cell tower in the sector of Alameda.
You said 6:24 or 9:20?
I'm sorry, 9:20:34.
So roughly 20-minute period.
We know that. We know he was at
27.
Mom's.
What is this map?
This is just going to be a zoomed in picture from the previous one. Just showing the same time frame, just showing a little bit more zoomed in from the cell tower in proximity to Alameda.
At 9:20:34, what if anything happens on the defendant's phone?
At this time, Chris Wilson calls Alex at 9:20:34. It shows for 131 seconds. And we got this data from his CDR since it does not show on either one of his extractions. And during that time, Claude CV row at 9:21:36 calls, but Alex does not answer it.
And again, his phone was pinging back at his house in Fairfax at that time period, correct?
That is correct.
So we know it wasn't him. Row.
We see the blue and green box. Tell the jury what's happening with Alex's Suburban at this point.
So at 21:22, which that's military time, is going to be 9:22. Green is going to show vehicle movement, and blue is going to show transmission shifting.
And is that consistent with the OnStar data at 9:22:49 of him arriving in Alameda?
It is.
And on page 28, is that data point that you just referenced?
That is correct, 9:22:39.
Starting about 9:22, does Alex's phone reflect any step activity?
It does 9:22:39 to 9:32:14, showing approximately.
Bev, this is very plausible that it was some kind of mob hit because it was that clean. Somebody else said, the one I just put said it was Eddie and another crony. Eddie does not seem capable of doing this. And Murdaugh, KO, I know it's possible in 15 minutes to do all this, but we really think Alec Murdaugh, it's possible for him? Not sure about that.
195 steps taken on his phone.
At 9:24:13, what if anything does the defendant's phone reflect?
He calls Libby Murdaugh, which would be his mom, shows 20 seconds long. That's from the CDR, so it's not on either phone extraction.
And that would be the landline at Alameda.
That's correct.
After that, is there another missed call from Rogan to Paul?
There is at 9:26:06 p.m.
And then at 9:31:44, is that the first backlight activity on Maggie's phone since that time period you testified earlier about 9:07.
That's correct.
Why? Why did the backlight come on at 9:31? Right? I don't get that. Alexis, it's as Greek as the rest of me.
Around the time of that backlight activity.
There is at 9:34:14. Brogan Gibson sends an iMessage to Maggie Murdaugh saying, tell Paul to call me.
Oh, okay,
That
so
shows
she's
unread.
getting a text
Never read.
potentially. Okay, whatever. That doesn't prove anything to us.
We also have backlight activity associated with a missed call to Maggie's phone.
We do at 9:34:20.
Up here at 9:34 to 9:36:20, it says Maggie Murdaugh's iPhone backlight. Is that backlight off?
That's going to be backlight off.
Just the off is missing from the words.
That's correct.
That's important, right?
9:35 to 9:45, 10-minute period. Is there any activity on Alex's phone?
It's showing approximately 60 steps taken on his phone during that time frame. And also, as you see on the right-hand side, Paul and Maggie's phones are locked. It's referenced.
Orange and purple boxes. Quickly.
It's going to be engine running propulsion. 279, which is 9:43:18.
We have some additional telemetry consistent with him leaving.
We do. It shows that her backlight was off.
All missing from Alex's phone extraction.
It was missing from both phone extractions.
So yeah, he called her again at 9:45. Like, why is that bad for him? Why is that bad for him that he's calling Maggie again? If you just murdered her, why does that prove something that you're calling her again when you're is he on his way home from his mom's house now? I don't understand why that is bad for him.
Going down to 9:46:35. What, if any, activity do you see?
It shows that Alex Murdaugh called Paul Murdaugh. Shows 18 seconds long. That's with the connection time. And that is based off of Alex's CDRs. It does not show in either extractions.
9:47:23. What do we say, if anything?
Alex sends a iMessage to Maggie stating, call me, babe. And that shows unread in Maggie Murdaugh's extraction.
And we see some backlight activity around the time of that text message, that unread text message.
We do. A couple seconds.
We have a map here. Just generally, what does this reflect?
We do. This is going to reflect the coverage area of the cell tower between Moselle and Alameda.
And this is whose phone?
This is going to be Alex Murdaugh's phone. This is going to be his Verizon records, not location data for phone.
Moving towards the direction of Moselle.
That is correct.
Additional map consistent with that is testified to by Matt Wild.
That is correct. It's showing coverage area.
At 9:52:15, what the activity is on Alex's phone?
So at 9:52:15, Alex Murdaugh sends an iMessage to Chris Wilson saying, call me if up.
Just around the time where he's running 80 miles an hour.
That's correct. 9:51:43 is when we have the 80.16 mile per hour.
Running 80 miles per hour. I think he means driving 80 miles per hour. And somebody said here, where was it? I was saving it for this. I thought, did I already, yeah, here we go. Give him a break. He could have been passing somebody, have to admit, passing on 55 road. I know I've hit 80 miles per hour before, and that's something they brought up in cross. To me, 80 miles per hour is fast, but like if it's late at night and I'm driving to my mom's house and there's nobody else on the road, I'm not going to admit that I speed, but it may have happened before.
All right, moving over to the next page. Is there any further activity?
Alex ends up receiving a call from Chris Wilson at 9:52:59. Shows 42 seconds long with connection. That's also not on either extraction. And at 9:53:55,
Agreed, Jamie.
he receives another call from Chris Wilson. Shows 123 seconds. And that is on his CDRs, but not on either phone extraction.
And then from at about 9:56:57, what, if any, activity do you see on Alex's phone?
So from 9:56:57 to 10:06:57, it shows that Alex Murdaugh traveled approximately 231 steps traveled during that time.
Sorry, what time?
9:56:57 to 10:06:57.
Remind the jury what time the 911 call was.
It was 10:06:14.
At 9:57 and 9:58, what activities reflected on Paul's records?
So Brogan Gibson calls Paul Murdaugh, shows 4 seconds. And that's based off of CDRs. And then at 9:58:35, Brogan sends a text message to Paul stating, yo.
And that hits Paul's phone.
That is correct. And it shows unread from his phone extraction.
I don't know,
We have
Taco.
a bunch of green and blue boxes. Is this more telemetry data from the Suburban?
This is green's going to represent drives, and blue is going to represent some kind of gear shifting the vehicle.
But the DM OnStar data reflects what, about 10 on the dot?
It reflects him pulling into the driveway at 4147 Moselle Road, the main entrance.
Where did the Suburban go first?
Suburban went directly to the house bottom left.
You didn't go to the kennels first and went to the house first?
That is correct.
Lori, I do think there is some stuff to watch so that you can see that It doesn't look like he did it, but again, that's where the roadside incident comes into me. Is like, this guy's capable of doing things I can't imagine. So I don't know.
Correct.
And what time does it arrive at the house? Or what time right there in that map? That's what the map at the top.
That's what the time that it pulls into the driveway.
I'm sorry. 1 second.
Good
At
point,
10:03,
Bethany.
36 p.m.
Good point. Maybe
this-
part of the scheme, Alex's job was to get rid of Maggie's phone, and that's how he decided to do it. But there's no way he also got rid of the guns and the clothes.
there's 2 entries around that time. Can you tell the jury what any activity you see as it relates to Maggie's phone?
So Alex Murdaugh calls Maggie Murdaugh's phone at 10:03:58, and backlight is on associated with that.
And then starting about 10:04:08, what don't we see? What time period?
So from 10:04:08 to 10:46:40,
We've got
There's-
reenactments going on now. We got reconstructionists here like Janet. Thank you.
a gap in activity. I don't see any activity on Maggie's phone at all through the knowledge C database.
At 10:05:06, what, if anything, does the data reflect?
It reflects Alex's Suburban leaving the main house based on the GM data.
Going over to page 35. Is this one of your cast maps?
Yes, it is. It's 10:05:06, and it's showing the time the Suburban starts to leave down to the kennels.
All right, so this is where we start to get to the really, really bad stuff for Alec Murdaugh and the really damning stuff for me. Again, a lot of this I thought was really, really good for the state, and the way they're explaining it is very plausible. Now, did they prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but at least they're giving me some plausible explanations for how all this happened and why it makes sense that maybe it had to be Alec Murdaugh, or at least he knew or was involved. And now we're about to get to some of that important stuff here.
And going to the next map, what time is that?
Next map's going to be 10:05:57. That's the arrival time at the kennels.
According to that GPS location data.
Yes, sir, Mike.
10:05:57. 10:05:57.
What's that time again?
It's going to be 10:05:57.
Down at the bottom of the page, what time is the 911 call?
10:06:14.
How many seconds?
So that's 17 seconds. And a lot of you are asking, like Jay-Z, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Heavy D. The shirt. Love the shirt. Happy Friday. Not guilty. Agree on possible conspiracy. How did he call 911 so quick? So this is the big question here. In 17 seconds or 20, he went over to the bodies, checked their pulses, tried to turn Paul over, took Paul's phone, and put it back down on his butt. That seems impossible. I don't think it's possible to do all this cleanup and stuff in 15 minutes, but that does not seem impossible. And again, we're mixing and cross here. He played his phone, as we've heard in closing arguments, when it's like 3 minutes. And wow, it seems a lot longer in silence. He started his phone for 20 seconds, and I watched that. Didn't seem that long. I don't know about any of you guys, but the 20 seconds did not seem that long. And there were some other comments about this I'll put up too, but this is really damning for him, I think.
So that from the time that the Suburban arrives at the kennels and he calls 911.
Roughly 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
That's correct.
You recall the defendant's statements to law enforcement shortly after the crime? That he went over and
Colby,
checked-
I agree. A lot of this stuff is very weird, and that's where this guy, this witness on cross, got a lot of shots in when the defense attorney asked a bad question. Does this seem reasonable to you? It doesn't seem reasonable that he'd call his family and his son's friend? No, that's not what I'd be doing. I'd be in shock. And he's like, well, speaking of shock, he got this text message of a girl in a bikini, and he was searching for a hotel or a restaurant or something. That proves he was in shock. He's like, I don't know what he was doing with that stuff. It's like, what? That was them trying to introduce bad evidence, and it did not play at all. And this guy, again, I feel like he was trying a little bit too hard, but he drove a truck through a bad question saying, that's absolutely not what I would do. You asked my opinion, so you can't. Again, that lawyer couldn't object to his own question. He asked my opinion. Is that what you would do? He's like, no, that's not what I would do at all. I would be in shock. I don't think I'd be calling anybody if my son and my wife were laying there.
the bodies and that sort of thing?
I do.
What, if anything, in his statements to law enforcement did the defendant say about what he did when he arrived at the scene?
The defendant stated that he went and checked on Paul and Maggie to check the bodies.
They had to get all this evidence in, John, before this guy could testify to the summary, but I agree. I would have done it earlier.
From the moment the Suburban arrived at the kennels, how long did it take for that 911 call to be made?
Less than 20 seconds.
I agree, Jamie, and the testimony did not say that he was.
Call
Shelley
from
Smith did
Call
not
never
say
answered.
that.
That is correct. 10:08:27. Never answered.
Melissa, that's one of
11:54,
my
what happens?
This is when Alex Murdaugh.
that's one of my hangups with the Idaho case as well as the timeline. I definitely think all this stuff is possible, but gosh, I'd like to have more info.
was on the 911 call. Said he was going to go get a gun. This was at 10:11:54. This is when Suburban is showing leaving the kennels.
So again, this timeline is lining up with Alex's statements. So wasn't all a lie.
And down at the bottom of page 36, we see another map. What does that reflect?
That's going to be 10:13:54. And on the next page, it's going to show the map. That's when his Suburban left the main house going back to the kennels.
And what time does the location data reflect that the Suburban arrived back to the kennels?
10:14:30 is when it's going to reflect driving back to the kennels. Or approximately. This is when he's coming into the view of the kennels.
And then what time does the 911 call end?
So the 911 call is going to end at 10:17.
And they got into the
is what the 10:16:37.
the when he could view the bodies if he pulled in where the headlights were pointing on cross. I didn't think it was very effective personally. But all this stuff is kind of lining up with his 911 calls at this point, except for how did he say he did all that stuff. And I could also believe he just lied to make it seem like what he thought he should have done when he showed up. And he just lied for no reason because he seems to be struggling with that. Or he already knew they were dead when he left. And when he got back, he knew it was time to make the call. And that was part of the plan and the story. I could see either of those things being true.
7 p.m. is referring to. That's going to be when his step data ended. I believe it was 594 steps taken.
I do agree with this a bit, Glenn Locke. It
911
did
call,
feel
does the
like
defendant's
that.
phone reflect any activity?
It does. It shows him calling Randy Murdaugh. Shows 16 seconds long with connectivity time. And that's based off his CDRs. It was not found on either extraction. Then also we have a 10:18 where he's sending a text message to Randy saying, please call me emergency.
Is there step activity around this time when I was suspended?
There is 10:18:53 to 10:28:05. We're showing approximately 525 steps taken during that time frame.
And does Paul's backlight come on again at 10:18?
It does 10:18:08 to 10:18:20. We're showing backlight.
Was that after the 911 call ended?
No. I'm sorry. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. So 10:17 is when the 911 call ended. This would have been at 10:18:08. This would have been right after.
And the last text that hit Paul's phone was from whom?
Rogan Gibson. I believe it said yo.
Paul's phone still hitting, of course, at the kennel location.
That is correct. This is going to be off of his iPhone location data.
And where was Paul's phone found again, according to your knowledge of the investigation?
It was found on Paul's rear end, facing up.
It's plausible, Erica. It's absolutely
Top of page 39, we have
possible.
a map. What does that reflect?
This is going to reflect Verizon records for Alex Murdaugh, starting at 10:19 all the way to 11:18. And it's just showing the sector it was pinging off of. And that's in the area of Moselle Road.
All right, we have a range of times there from the 10-ish hour to the 11-ish hour p.m. without being there.
That's correct.
I agree with you. He lived 1.5 miles away, Amanda. And that's why I thought that testimony is really good for the defense, because he didn't hear any shots either. And somebody else asked, how long, Marjorie, how long is it to walk from the house to the kennel? I don't know, but it wasn't. The state tried to make it seem like it was really close. The defense tried to seem like it was really far away. And I think this is the reason why.
Does Alex phone reflect a couple of calls that were not on his extraction, but in the CDRs?
It does.
To what people?
It's going to be to Randy Murdaugh, John Marvin, and then Rogan Gibson, and then Christy.
At 10:20:08, what, if any, activity does Paul's phone reflect?
So Paul's phone shows a display on screen auto lock. It's been locked. It's just documenting an auto lock.
Display on auto lock?
Mhm.
And that auto lock can be consistent with what, according to your understanding?
According to my understanding, is that auto lock could be it doesn't recognize like a face, so automatically locks, or it could be just hitting like on the iPhone power button on the side.
And what was the last text that hit Paul's phone again? Who was it from?
Rogan Gibson.
And what does the defendant do just seconds later?
Calls Rogan Gibson.
Was that on the Dillon Hightower extraction?
It was not on the Dillon Hightower extraction or the second one.
You mentioned before that there was a group text about Mr. Randolph's health. When did the defendant finally read that text?
On the following day, so that'd be June 8th, 2021.
At 10:22:09, was there a text the defendant read?
There was 10:22:09. He received a group text message from Michael Gunn and a few people saying she brought the heat from Miami boys, and it was read the same night at 10:38:42 p.m. An associated picture is below.
Very
10:24
weird.
to 10:25 hours. What if anything does the?
But he can't control what people are sending to his phone, right? And assuming Mike Gunn didn't know at this point.
Alex tries to call Rogan, and then he sends an iMessage stating, "Call me." And then he attempts to do a FaceTime, and this is going to be the first log that we see on his phone records is going to be this FaceTime call with Rogan on his extraction for the day of June 7th, 2021.
Multiple attempts to contact Rogan. Huh?
That's correct.
At what time does law enforcement arrive on the scene?
Approximately 10:25 is when the first deputy arrived on scene.
10:25.
That's correct.
We see step activity around this time on Alex's phone.
We do. So we had a group of step activity end at 10:28:54, and then we had a new group start at 10:28:54 that goes to 10:37:27. It's showing 320 steps traveled approximately.
And does the defendant's phone reflect any phone activity after that?
It reflects at 10:29:17 a call to Randy that shows answered 42 seconds long. That's also not on the extraction. And then a FaceTime with Rogan at 10:30:31 that does show on the extraction.
That was attempted FaceTime.
That's correct. I believe the previous testimony, Rogan said he was asleep during the time.
Moving on to page 41.
This is going to be a Paul Murdaugh Verizon records. This is just going to show the the tower and then just the location. And you can see Moselle Road within it. It's a 10:34 time period.
So a couple people have made this comment right here that Kimber said, hitmen don't use victims' guns. Somebody else said, there's no way they would have used their own guns or Alex guns. We don't have proof, in my opinion, that there were those guns. The cycling of the shell casings, if you think that's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, that's fine. In my opinion, I don't think we have proof what weapons committed these crimes.
Is there a display on activity on Paul's phone? Well, also a phone call from Nolan Tooten around that time?
That's correct. Correct. Around 10:34, it's showing display on and then a Nolan Tooten phone call.
And then finally, what time does Paul's phone finally die?
Paul's phone finally dies at 10:34:24 p.m. on June 7th, 2021.
Almost 2 hours after the film video.
That's correct.
Maggie's phone stays locked until when?
The following day, June 8th, around 1:10 p.m. when the investigators find it.
When the investigators find it.
That is correct.
I'm going to show you a couple of exhibits. We're almost done, and everybody's hungry. I'll show you what's been marked as 523. If you're to this trial, say it's 523, you recognize that.
I do.
And tell the jury just where that's from, please.
This is going to be a text message I retrieved from one of the Cellbrite extraction reports. It's going to be from Paul to Alex.
Your Honor, this time I offer state 523 into evidence.
Your Honor, we would need previous objections. Have no additional objections. Or 403.
I see the exhibit.
Guess we're almost here to the end of it.
3. I'm going to show 523. And this is a text from which person to which person?
So this is going to be from Paul Murdaugh, and it's going to be to, it says voicemail. That's going to refer to Alex. This is paying from his phone. It's going to be the owner. So it's going to be Paul to Alex.
And what's the date?
The date is going to be May 6, 2021 at 10:52:13 a.m.
And what does it say?
It says, I am still in EB because when you get here, we need to talk. Mom found several bags of pills in your computer bag. This is again.
Several bags of pills does not seem like recreational use to me, but this is back in May. And to me, this also cuts both ways. The state could say, oh, the little detective was on to him and he didn't want him to find out about the drug problem, so he killed him. Or it could be, look, they already knew about this stuff. They already knew about a lot of his struggles back in May. Why wouldn't he have done this back then if he really wanted to hurt him because of this?
From Paul to Alex on May 6th.
All right. So I think this is probably a good time to pause the video until we are going to show a little bit at the end. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove it for a second and try to knock out some of these questions because they are stacking up. Tori, asking about a live on Monday. I haven't decided yet, so it's a definitely maybe. Jeanette, if they think he will serve life for financials, why don't they work a plea deal for AM to take the stand and tell his story on the murders? They don't want to do that. They want to convict him of these at this point. Marty, Peter, have you ever known a defense to win a dismiss motion when the prosecution rests? I'm closer to guilty more than ever. 43 days, smoke free. Yay, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yes, they have won it. Very unlikely to happen in a trial like this. Kim, does the USA have different types of jails for money crimes compared to murder convictions? Most money criminals go to minimum security. It all depends on what kind of prison he can go to, but he wants to go to federal prison, which is what I've heard, and they're hoping that some of his financial crimes go federal. Kuda, I have a feeling the appointed juror foreperson number 8 dropped the note to the judge he wants out for fear of his life. I don't know about fear of his life, but it makes sense that he doesn't want to do it. EJ, driving down to Orlando from New York, catching your live while the hubby drives. Felt like Poot was still in cross mode with his own witnesses' thoughts. Seems like that just might be his style. And he was a prosecutor for a long time, but some defense lawyers get so used to that. Sometimes they don't even call any witnesses, so they're so used to crossing and not directing. Jesse Sue, do jurors have a person in deliberations with them that can answer questions about any evidence or a transcript they can reread, or is it just off what they remember? I've learned so much. No, they do not have anybody in there helping them. They can ask questions, though. Trudy, Peter, forgive my ignorance because the case has my head spinning, but if AM is convicted and sentenced, does the state still prosecute the other crimes? They can. If he doesn't plead to them, they will. Oh, here's the other one about they don't use his guns. Well, we don't know for a fact that they did. Mr. RN, Peter, can you address Maggie finding Alex's pill stash? Again, I think it can cut both ways. Ashley, was Maggie's location turned off on her phone? I forget. Couldn't they see if her phone traveled at the same time and route as his? They, for whatever reason, they don't have that information. I don't know if she turned it off or what. Stacy, if Paul flushed his pill stash, then Alex had to rush to Mama's to get another stash, or it was a drug thing gone sideways. So many possibilities. CJ, but we know he was at the kennels at 8:44, doesn't leave until 9:06, 283 steps in 4 minutes. He claimed he woke up from the nap. He went to his mom's house. How can he be walking to the car for 283 steps in 4 minutes? Not possible. Somebody else said he could have been chasing the dog. I don't know. Atomic, because he wanted to know who and what his wife was talking to and about him, the wife holds all the good info. What do you want to see from the defense? Ashley said, I want to see some experts give us more plausible theories and give actual foundation to how some of the defense's theories are more likely than the state's theories, because that's going to create even more reasonable doubt. I would also like them to disprove some of the things the state has to rely on. Like, did they have somebody go to these houses and test and be like, there was no blood anywhere? There were no weapons anywhere. Confirm that they looked and couldn't find it, because the state's relying on the fact that SLED didn't look and that's why they couldn't find him. But if they would have looked, they would have found him. Activity on PM's phone wasn't on his extraction either. Leads me to put less weight on it. I agree with you, Partial Arts. I'm glad you brought that up. Mela, I just did a test. I walked around 45 seconds, 70 steps. That's not a fast pace. Interesting. Nala, so hope to see plus exposure of intergenerational power intersecting with law practice and force equal justice and abuse of power. Murdaugh co-owned HC courts 90 years ending with Oxy. Soaked AM ruling with name and fear. It seems like it's coming to an end. Evangeline Light, sir, did you watch the detailed red dot portion when they showed his day? Yes, I did. Ashley, I answered that one. Arthur, call logs delete after so many calls are made. How many did he make on the way back to mom and finding them? Pause by railroad so he could be a quick drug buy from cousin Eddie. Again, I don't know. EJ, if a hung jury, can they retry for conspiracy? Possible, but unlikely. Vicky, Peter, are you a defense attorney? I'm a personal injury plaintiff's lawyer now on the civil side. I did practice criminal years back. I was a prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney at different points in my career. Ray, Thanks for the wrap-ups. Why would the defense agree to time of death tied to the phone stopping, held at gunpoint, etc.? For some time, shooting could be after AM left. Also, isn't 70 steps per minute a slow walking pace? I don't think it's that fast, but I wanted to know what you guys thought, number one. Number two, I think that if you don't agree with that time of death, then it really seems like you're stretching. I think it's better to say how it's possible that he didn't commit the crime, even if that is the time of death. Chandler Halston tries to use his phone to establish alibi, but got caught from the cell phone data. Deborah said, yeah, but there was a lot of other evidence like body parts he tried to dispose of. We don't have any of that here. Trudy, Peter, my hubby's ban from Friday Night Bingo has been lifted, so go longer tonight. This case is so sad. Love hearing you talk about it. I am going to try to get to Friday Night Frenzy eventually. It's already 10 o'clock. There's so many questions, and we're still not done with the testimony. But I'm going to hit as many questions as I can like I always do. Caprice. But he did park out by the shed at his mom's. And what does that prove? C minor. Why didn't he report his guns stolen months before? Because they weren't stolen. He thought his son lost them. That's why they're bringing in all that testimony to answer this exact question, which means it's a good question. Shroom Felt. North Carolina attorney here. 2 guns, 2 phones handled differently, 2 shooters. MM killer took phone. AM killer didn't. I think he meant PM killer didn't. Shooter either takes both or none. AM and MM know about the pills and made. Dealer wants to keep them quiet. AM knows who, probably. I mean, this is the type of line, and this is a lawyer, so this is the type of line I'm kind of seeing too. I mean, Alec could have been one of them or could have known about him, but I don't know. Atomic Blonde. There was a skinning shed. He washed up in there. Based on what proof, though? Based on the proof that he didn't do it anywhere that would be normal? I don't know. I think the state's got to prove that to me. Marty, if he was involved somehow, I'm closer to thinking he was. But then I have to ask, why hurry to get home? Surely he'd stay away longer for the alibi. Or if he set somebody up to do it, maybe make sure you let him know I'm going to my mom's house now, or sit in the bushes. And when you see me drive off, do not do it until 15 minutes later when you know I'm at my mom's house. I don't know. Peter, I do subscribe. I am self-employed and doing my taxes tonight. Can I write the subscription off as a retainer fee? Unfortunately, no. It's a good thought, Cece. Tasha Turtle. What about the time difference between the software between Gmail, Verizon, and 911 call? That could be a difference of about 30 seconds. Love your channel. That's a good point. I think the defense will bring that up if they think it's viable. Rick Rush. Planking for 20 seconds can seem like an eternity. Michelle. His life in drug world led to their deaths. He might not know the details, but he needs to tell what he does know. What does he have to lose? He is set to go to prison for life. I agree. But I think he can't possibly admit that he had anything to do with these murders, or everybody would leave him. Thank you, Lily and Susan. Joey, at a PTA meeting earlier, I live in Georgia, familiar with that area. 10 others and I were discussing the case. 3 of us were solid, not guilty. 8 said guilty. There's a lot of talk that this might be a hung jury. You would think there's a lot more hung juries than there are. There are so many opportunities that has to be unanimous, and juries usually get there. Maybe he lied about the pulse because he should have. Gemma, exactly. He thought it was the right thing to say. I could see him doing that. Crystal, he could have checked for the pulse while on 911. He said he went up to it and it's bad. Sounded like he did it before. Mia, all lies usually have some truth. There you go. Shelly, welcome. Suze, Emily D. Baker's tweet at 10:26 a.m. this morning. One of the comments includes part of the kennel video. Can hear a 4th voice, deep and raspy, say, tie it up. Interesting. Alexis, in my opinion, I feel the orientation changed on Maggie's phone when Maggie was shot and went down. It could be, but that doesn't prove to us who did it, right? That's what I'm trying to look for. Jamie, could he have planned the 911 from the cell in hand at bodies, but connected to OnStar, and he went back to the vehicle to speak to 911? I have no idea. Why didn't he ensure Buster was alive first? Well, I mean, it seemed like he knew where Buster was, and that Buster was not at Moselle. Cynthia, I think he was napping. Someone who he owed money came to the house, grabbed him, guns, took him down to the cages, and instead of killing him, they killed his family to punish Alec. Things don't add up. I don't know. Stacy, didn't MM have an iPhone watch? No one checked it. Again, I don't know. I haven't heard anybody say that, but it wouldn't surprise me. AM is tall with long legs. Bubba, listen to AM. Okay. Time data is from 2 different sources, OnStar and phone. Animals in different places. State's best evidence was emailed in 1 week ago. Wild, right? The GM data came in 1 week ago. Thank you, Morgan. Shauna, how did Maggie's blood get on the Suburban steering wheel if he didn't go near her body in those 20 seconds? That SUV only went to the kennels when he got home, was clean. Well, maybe he did. That's what I'm saying. Maybe he did go and touch her body, but maybe he did it after the call or something. I don't know. I don't know, but there would be way more if it was from him pulling the trigger. John O'Rourke, the prosecution is close, but still too far away. What if the true killer is still out there on the loose? Proof or sleep with a killer walking free. Kelbell, I don't know how they overcome this timeline mixed with the car moving. I think if they'd search his mom's property that night, they'd find everything. Kelbell, I wish they would have. I know. But we have to hold that against the state, not against the defense, that they didn't do their job, that the sled didn't. Canna, notice that the metadata for the tree video was included, but not for the kennel video. Well, I don't know if it was the metadata for the video or just the thumbnail. Non-fatal shots at first, hard to kill family. It's interesting, Bonnie. Did they sync and verify each device date and time? Yes, I believe they did. And that's how they found out that they could not put Maggie and Paul's phones together. Stephanie, dark, secluded, Alex strips after shooting hoses off, throws clothes, guns, and garbage, bags, then bags in the car, showers, new clothes, drives to mom's and dumps the bags. The state's got to prove that to me, and they did not come anywhere near it. Okay. Okay, I got the questions to a manageable part. We're going to come back. During cross, we talked about a lot of it. Why would they take Maggie's and not Paul's? 5 minutes to hide everything and clean it up. He talked about some of the impossibilities of the timeline, which I agree with. He steps in, asks the investigator that it was odd, steps in it to call his friends. And the investigator was like, absolutely. But again, this guy just kept arguing with this defense lawyer, who I think does a good job. And he just seemed too biased to me during cross. And then redirect, there was not a ton on recross. Do you think he gunned it around another vehicle? And also, this was interesting. So it took him 16 minutes to get there, 18 minutes to get back. And when law enforcement drove it to test how long it should take, it was 17-ish minutes. So right in between Alec Murdaugh's 2 time periods. So he wasn't going 80 the whole time. It took him an average time to get there, 16 to 18 minutes. I actually thought that was really good because at first, this was the thing. During direct, and that's when I tweeted, this timeline is really great for the state. But on cross and redirect and recross, I feel like a lot of holes were poked. Like he wasn't running around with the chicken with his head cut off. I don't think that's that fast of steps. And 80 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour or whatever, when it took him the same amount of time it took law enforcement, was he really driving that crazily? I don't know. Then we heard the directed verdict. No shocker, they lost. And the state rests their case in chief. We hear from the coroner, who basically tells us he put his hand under the armpit, didn't do the rectal exam. Nobody basically got a really good time of death, 1 to 3 hours, sometimes between 8 and 10:30. That was the time of death, even though we know it wasn't 8:44, but that didn't make a ton of sense. And law enforcement didn't even ask about time of death to him. Then we get to Shailene Tyndall, who I think was a really good witness for the defense. She put that statement out there that the public was safe, and if they learn anything otherwise, they will notify the public, and they never notified the public. So SLED didn't even think it was anybody else. They always thought it was Alec Murdaugh. He was dead in the circle. They lied to him. They did all this stuff, and they knew it was him the whole time, yet they still refused to do a proper investigation, go to the mom's house, look in the pipes, look in the shower, look in the sinks, look in the, what did somebody say? The feed room or the skinning room or the cooler, like whatever. Why didn't they search all those places if they knew it was him, which these statements kind of make it seem like it was? But I am going to answer some more questions, and I'm going to put some more chats up because I do want to end this kind of on a high note. I am always so shocked that it can be this lighthearted in court, but we got there at the end of the day today, and the judge seems to allow it in this courtroom. Must be a Southern thing. This doesn't really fly in Florida. They're way too kind of jovial and kind of jokey about something that is very serious, a double murder trial. But let's listen to it together here.
We take those and turn them into paragraphs to the paper, and the media can print for layman's terms to be better understood by the public.
And I want to make sure I understand this. Any subsequent release never changed. Actually, I think you said the subsequent release said the same thing. And at this time, there's no danger to the public. That didn't change, correct?
In the updated release that was sent out on letterhead, yes, that was removed.
That was removed.
Yes, sir.
But did they say there is a danger to the public? They never said that, did they?
No, sir.
Beg the court's indulgence for just a moment. other question. In this story, your last name is Lowe.
Yes, sir. I got married since then. I guess somebody decided to like me. Well, thank you.
We can answer any questions.
She seems pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to say she seems pretty cool. So that was funny. And then this is when, I mean, this guy, okay, I try to be really nice to people and give a lot of grace. This guy just is funny. He's a funny character. And maybe witnesses wouldn't think you were hitting on him if you didn't walk up and get up in their personal space every single time. But here we go. Let's listen to it together. Yeah, Murdaugh seemed to like that. He's very as happy as I've seen him all trial. Eventually he's going to get up. That's why I listened to everything on 1.5 speed. But luckily we have your comments to keep the time filled with all your theories here, which is interesting. A lot of theories.
And I missed the last question. Did you get married?
Yeah, you sure trying to court me? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm happily married.
The whole courtroom erupts. He didn't think it was that funny. He's like, I'm happily married. Okay, just for the record, court reporter, I'm happily married.
I'm happily married. I am not. I just couldn't hear. What was the date of the second release that Mr. Harpoon? I honestly don't know.
Am I talking into here?
Yes, ma'am.
The date of the
like,
second.
like she doesn't get it, what she's supposed to, because you are standing in a very weird spot. Like, you're right here, bud. Like, what are we doing? It's weird. It's weird. And then right before the end,
It's the same. We had received to the end after it was.
Harpoolian's
talking
comment
about
at the
here.
end was pretty funny.
Congratulations on your marriage. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Anything further?
Did you think that Mr. Meadows was proposing to you a moment ago?
I don't know. I'm just picking.
I
No
mean, what
further
a way to
questions.
end
Thank
the
you.
day, right? I
Step
mean, that's
down.
great. That's how I want to end our Friday, with some lighthearted court moments to show, even as serious as this stuff is, still life. We got to live and be happy. Happy somebody got married and is in love. And thank you, John. Make me happy. I'm pretty fly for a white guy with this shirt on. All right, let's get back to these questions. I'm going to knock these out quick, and then we're going to get to the Friday Night Frenzy. I was hoping an hour and a half. That only leaves me 3 minutes. I don't think I can quite do that. Cass the Sass. She brought the heat from Miami. Didn't he claim to go to Florida after the murders? Maybe it was a drug hit. That's also the other thing. Like, I might have brought that text up when Michael Gunn was like, we're not really that close of friends. Like, so you just send this text to anybody? If you're the prosecution, how'd your closing arguments go? Timeline would be important. How it couldn't be anybody else. All of his lies, all the financial crimes, all of the shot in the head. We'll probably dig more into this later, Azam. Clever nickname. If the defense would argue as hard as you, I could go back to him being innocent, but what we've seen and my gut puts me beyond reasonable doubt. Clever, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. If you don't think they're appropriately connecting the dots for you and the state has made it beyond reasonable doubt, that's fair. That's your vote. Kimosabi, is the OnStar location time data exact? I don't think any of this stuff is exact, if you want my opinion. Haley, there's several details, and I think the defense is going to have some experts about the roadside shooting that would make sense of the murders. I feel an embedded confession coming out. Noel, predicting close. DA throws in a statement of involvement, but not current charge. Reasonable doubt. These attorneys are shooers. I expect fireworks, DH, JG, based on style, last resort. Azam, I'd say he was there, but he wasn't alone. I vote not guilty for this crime. Will his financial charges trial be televised too? I don't know. Hey, look, 203K subs. If you guys all sub, all 10,000 of you are the ones that aren't sub, go sub. We'll hit 204,000 by tonight. When is the 200K celebration party? I want to do it after the trial so we can kind of focus on it and have some people on, but this trial just is never ending. Kind of like this live. Shout out John Nizer. Thank you. Brianna. Shout to JWN. Sarah, if Paul was shot first in the target, why 5 shots and Maggie? I mean, I guess no loose ends kind of thing. I don't know. Jacuzzi, today convinced me guilty. Jury will remember data. Jamie, I want to hear more about the threats to Paul. We've heard some, and I think the defense will bring more out. Darlene, what's the defense costing Peter 6 to 7 figures? So I have heard rumblings that Harpoolian was 600,000 and Jim Griffin was 300,000. And then on top of that, experts and more lawyers. So I think it's going to be 7 figures. Martha, why did the prosecution think this was enough? It's enough for some people in the chat. Maybe it's enough for some jurors. Laura, I'm certain AM could have a diagnosis of a pathological liar. He can't help himself. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you, Laura. It is a lot, man. K. Macri, thank you. Nala, love you. Get my blood boiling. I can feel it, Nala, but I always know you're in the chat and we've agreed on certain things too. So I know you get fiery sometimes, but let's just stick with it together and keep talking about it. All right. Let's just keep discussing it together. I think I might have just unplugged my mic. Let me make sure I didn't do that. No, I didn't. All right. SW, if the coroner didn't take accurate time of death, is that reasonable doubt? I don't think so. Coroner stated he put his hand under the wife's armpit to determine death and rigor. I know. And he called it Riger. I know it was weird. Jamie, if Alex's lawyers knew Alex was there but didn't do it, would they have to disclose that info? No. The state picks the charge. Nicole, thank you. A different Nicole with a Q. You're mixing facts. Shells were matched to others on the property. The guy testified to this. He said couldn't say what gun without firing, but from the same. He said they were cycled through the same, and the state had multiple arguments that said that was junk science, and he even said that they couldn't have fired through, it was possible they couldn't have fired through the same weapon. I did not love that expert. Some people did, and if I'm a juror, I'm allowed to weigh the credibility of the expert and dismiss certain facts and not others. That was one I did not think was a great expert, I'll just say. Seems like you did, which is fine. That's fine. That's what lawyers hope, that people do believe they're experts. CC Walters, hung jury because SLED dropped the ball with this investigation. That's for sure. C minor, AM told law enforcement the guns were stolen before Christmas. Are you sure? I don't remember that. I thought Paul leaves guns everywhere. He left them out. I did not hear that these guns were stolen before Christmas. I could have missed it though. Colby, prosecution closes and they have proven AM lied about being at the kennels and the invest was bad. Thank you, Joel. C minor, how many coincidences and lies for you to see guilt? No, I think this timeline helped out a lot. This timeline got me there, and I think not there for guilt, but a lot closer to that. But again, I think that burden is high, and I just don't think they have enough because this investigation was so bad. And at some point you have to say, oh, he must have done this, except they didn't prove it because they just dropped the ball in the investigation. So I don't think I'm going to get there personally, which is okay for us to disagree. But I think because the investigation was so bad, a lot of this is I would have to connect too many dots and things that the state hasn't proven. Carolina, I feel the unidentified non-family DNA under Maggie's fingernails gives reasonable doubt. That's not actually a big deal to me because I don't think she got close enough to this killer, but I mean, it could for you. Again, see, this is people saying a reasonable doubt thing that it doesn't create reasonable doubt for me. Kia, the concerns, the coroner statement made my jaw drop today between Riger and armpits. It seems unreliable. Bethany, I think that's what the defense wanted. Dumb question. If he was found guilty, could they do more investigating and find and prosecute whoever really did it? No. Oh, found not guilty. Theoretically, yes, they could, but I don't think that would happen because all these witnesses said it was him. KJAB, and imagine how bad the investigation would have been into anybody else if they thought it was him the whole time and this was their investigation there. KJAB, most of the attorneys are too personally invested, unprofessional. How will that impact their decision? I mean, the decision's already been made, so we'll see. Emily, so you're at not guilty. Obviously, DC's case won't move that, but they could have rebuttal, right? And I don't know. Some of these state witnesses I think were really good for the defense. Some of the defense witnesses could be good for the state. Carrie Watson. Hi, Peter. I appreciate your perspective, analysis, and how you uphold integrity of the law. It is encouraging for me as a law school applicant. That's awesome, Carrie. Keep me posted, please. Welcome, Tali, to the membership crew. Stephen, 2X asking. Defense today had court be still for 20 seconds to make a point for how long that is. Any idea the longest that approach has been used in court? I know they used it in the George Floyd case. I think somebody used it for, I can't remember. I've heard it's multiple minutes. Donna Hall, Buster is the only one that he would cover for. Greg, gonna need playback rehab 1.5 is addicting. I know. I love it. I actually listened to 2 times, so that felt slow to me. Gates of above. Honestly, I think they are going to let AM get on the stand. He's already confessed and the financial crimes and the attempt at self-deletion, so he has nothing to lose on those fronts. I do think you're right. He's definitely confessed multiple times to the financial crimes, so that's one of the reasons I would keep him off. So I still don't think he's going to take the stand, but it's possible. AM. State has me so unconvinced of his guilt that I genuinely feel sympathy for him now. Say what you want about him. I believe he absolutely loved Paul. All the testimony said he loved Paul. Angie Cook, 911 in 20 seconds, pause in middle of call. Then Alex said, I've been up to it. It's really bad. Please hurry. Okay. All right. Dorothy, the step data is questionable, guys. I agree. Why can't they tell how far somebody walked? Chrissy, happy Friday, Peter. God bless you and the fam. Thanks for these nightly recaps. You're so down to earth and make law easy to understand for us. Thank you so much. These are the best. I love ending on these nice ones. It makes me feel good when I leave. Makes me want to come back for more. It's like hitting a good golf shot on hole 18. No matter how bad you play, it keeps you coming back for more. Lucia, proof he wanted M home, but no proof he lured Paul. Jay-Z, positive note, at least the week ended with a timeline. I agree. We really needed this timeline. Thank you, Drea, for the super chat. And Kay Macri decided to take the plunge to membership. Lacey Barrett, there's no evidence Alex pulled the trigger, but I also don't see any evidence of a second person on the property either. This makes it so hard. Hello from Melbourne, Australia. See, Lacey, I think that's because they didn't do a good investigation, or maybe there would have been evidence of somebody else. I don't know. D. Cerna, where are the tears from AM? I feel like I've seen tears, but again, we're getting a little subjective and looking kind of close to it. So, Cindy Law Nerd, welcome. Joel, make a demonstrative that is boxes showing what he would need to do in those 15-minute intervals. It's interesting. If somebody wants to do that and send it to me on Twitter or Instagram at Tragos Law, give me a follow on there. We're growing on there as well. Nowhere near as big as we are on YouTube, so we could use the follows on there. Rick Rush, if anything, we've learned how much information is tracking us all through tech, right? I mean, that is where I'm like, oof. I mean, luckily I'm not committing any crimes, but if I was, Azam, thank you for the super sticker. Dre, Buster didn't trigger narcissistic rage, boat wreck, possible divorce meant financial disclosure, total ruin, crime of passion, and practicality. That's what the state is trying to push here. Peter respects our opinions. Please respect his. Thank you, Marty. Thank you. And I know some people get angry in the chat and they have some passion, and that's okay. And we give grace even when grace isn't given to us, but try to. It makes it more enjoyable for the discussion, okay? None of us are making the ultimate decision. Let's remember that. Boricua Jewel, it's my 40th birthday. Happy big 4-0. And I'm so glad I caught this live. Rewatch crew, congrats on the 10K. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, hit that like button. Let's get 10K likes again on this video. Murs, I can also see it as a setup and aimed to him/family if he arranged in order to do it. Why would he be in the location? I agree, and that makes sense as well. All right. Yeah, even if you turn off your phone when you do the crimes, somebody just posted, that's true. But okay, that's it. Yes, disagreeing is not disrespecting, Tina. I agree with you there. All right. I love you all. I'm going to hit Friday Night Frenzy now. Go check it out over there. Let him know you came from here. Let him know. Lawyer, throw the golf stuff on. Let's give some love to Rob now. Nobody is particular is the member here. You guys are the best, literally. I love hanging out with you guys every night. This has been fun. I'm going to miss it when this trial's over, but there will always be another trial, right? Hit that like button on the way out from here. I think a redirect is about to happen, and I am going to, I've got to find the link, and then I will be over there as well. So you guys are the best. Let me find this link here. Got to send it to myself. Love to love ya, love ya. I knew this was going to happen, Katie. Steering wheel equals AM and MM's DNA. Someone's blood can't prove whose. Yeah. All right. That's all, folks. You guys are the best. I'll see you over there. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.